Today we will talk about LangChain. When you build AI agents, LangChain is usually the first framework you would definitely like to try. And if you read the docs, the LangChain actually tells you to install the Docs MCP server to get the latest docs, especially when you are vibe coder, like you're using Claude Code or ChatGPT. But the docs don't really talk about what this server is and why you need it and what can go wrong. So in this video, I want to cover three things the official docs hadn't taught about you. So first is how the LangChain Docs MCP server actually works and why it's late in the first place, and will it break my code if I'm using the old version with ChatGPT, or Claude generates a breaking chain code to my repository, because it's a total disaster, you know. So let's go to the first one. How does this thing actually work? You can simply think MCP as HTTP for AI agents. It's just a way for the AI to call external tools. So when you ask Claude Code to write LangChain, there is MCP inside the IDE. That client sends a request to the LangChain Docs MCP server. The server looks up the latest docs and examples and send them back. Then Claude writes code based on these docs, usually the lowest version, and that's basically the whole flow. Now you might say, I don't need the latest version because the version I'm using is good. Like, I don't need to upgrade to the newest version. And that sounds reasonable. But here's what actually happens without the LangChain Docs MCP server. You are relying on the stale docs. You get hallucinated APIs, wrong imports, and code that does not follow the current best practices. For example, in older versions, you use wrong, and in newer versions, that become invoke. If you stay on the old version for too long, you are starting building tech debt. You miss the new features. Bug fixes only lands in newer versions, and when you finally upgrade, okay, everything breaks at once. That's when updates turn into a disaster. So this is why the Docs MCP server exists. It helps the model generate more accurate APIs, fewer hallucinations, up-to-date example, and code that matches where LangChain is right now. It's not about chasing the newest thing. It's about not falling behind without realizing it. And now the real question is, if my project is relying on an old version LangChain and Claude is reading the latest docs via MCP server, so will it break my code? What kind of version Claude would generate? I'm not 100% sure either, so let's just experiment it. First, I will build a tiny translation agent with the latest LangChain, and its task is translate English to German. Claude generates a new style syntax, and it uses the invoke function. Let's run it. It works. And now let's switch to the old LangChain version. I'm going to use the version before 0.1, like the 0.0.13. At that time, LangChain didn't even have the Anthropic integration in the way we use today. So for the model, we should use OpenAI. Now I asked Claude Code to implement the same translation agent in old version Python file. And I'm not adding any extra instructions, just the same request. Let's see. What does Claude generate? Here is the interesting part. It actually generates the old style code. It uses predict function instead of the newest version syntax invoke, and it uses OpenAI instead of Anthropic without any the hints to the Claude. So which means that Claude didn't blindly follow the latest docs. It adapted. Let's run it. It works. It translates I love programming into German. Ich liebe Programmieren. Yeah, I'm pronouncing right. So in this case, even with MCP enabled, my old version agent still runs. So the good news is you can use the LangChain Docs MCP server without panicking. In most cases, Claude Code won't randomly break your project, but from my previous engineering experience with other dev tools, it can happen. So if you want to be safe, just add one simple rule in your prompt or Claude skill, like don't upgrade my dependencies to a major version, and always generate code that's compatible with my current setup. That single line already prevents most breaking changes. That's all. I am Magenta, and I explain where AI-generated code breaks in production, not just demos. You can follow my YouTube channel, X, or GitHub to get more info, and see you next time.